All right. We were supposed to have an intro, but we didn't. Slight mess up there. Well, hey, welcome. We are live Thursday happy hour at Little Nessie with Dave and Ron. Happy Thursday to you, Ron. You don't look like you're at your house.
I am not at my house. I am about 800 miles east of Hawaii, or about 1,500 miles west of LA, something like that.
Nice. So you're on another boat.
I'm on a boat.
On a boat. Oh, the life
Out
of
on the
Mr.
water.
Ron Stowers.
Well, you know what? Hopefully, I have better internet this week than last week at my own house.
Yeah, I almost had to cancel the show mid-show last week. So, well, hey, if you're joining us live, welcome. Ron and I get together live every Thursday. Our goal is usually 3 p.m., but we don't always hit it. And we talk about a good wide variety of topics while we sip on some cocktails. And if you're joining us, join along. Grab a cocktail because we're talking about a few things today. We are going to kick it off with a From the Gut uh, series from me, where I just share what's trending, what's going on right now, marketing, branding, pop culture, whatever it might be. And this one today, I'm talking about Instagram and the fact that their CEO pushed out a video just last night with some pretty big changes coming. And then when we're done with that, we're going to go here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the evolution of house flipping. We have some very interesting data on that I think everybody will enjoy.
Yep. And then
And then we're moving on to the cost of selling and really the seller's perspective of the cost of selling and their feelings about it with some very interesting insights. Of course, we can't ignore the Compass Anywhere conversation. It's dominating the media, both mainstream and in the industry. Very equivalent to the whole Rocket, Mr. Cooper, Redfin merger. It's another giant wave maker.
yep.
Uh, AI agents.
More
I'm
more
not
the
sure what.
more the AI scheming and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, so we are, thank you for that, David. Yeah, we're going to talk about open source AI's recent study on how these different AI tools are learning how to lie and to scheme. That'll be a fun part of the conversation.
Yep, agreed. All right, so let's kick this off, and I'm going to talk about Instagram.
Right.
Oh, my buttons aren't working. Here we go.
I can push them for you if you
All
want.
right, we're going to kick it off. All right, so this one is just going to be a shorter one today, but just last night, I believe the CEO and president of Instagram pushed out a video where he was talking about another change to Instagram's algorithm. He actually just pushed out a video. I think it was February or March earlier this year, where he talked about the fact that hashtags really aren't as important as they used to be. It used to be, every company or person would add 5, 10, or if you're really crazy, 15, 20 hashtags to try to get you to show up on people's feeds. They really kind of got rid of that, and that really doesn't help your reach anymore. It's more about the keywords that you use in your caption. But here's another one. He announced a pretty major shift. This change is going to start giving users more control over what they see. And it's not just through the usual mute or unfollow, but through real customizable preferences. I'm not sure when the change actually takes place. I should know that, but you'll be able to tell the algorithm exactly what kind of content you want more of or what you want less of. And that to me is a bit of a game changer. For years, people have been trying to crack the algorithm, figure out how to beat it by dancing for it, and just a way to hack into more reach, more engagement, more visibility. But with this change, the algorithm is somewhat just stepping aside and handing the power back to the people. So now that you're gonna have to it's not going to be about you trying to impress the machine, but you're going to be trying to impress your actual audience. You're trying to earn someone's attention, someone real, someone with thumbs and a mind and preferences and likes and dislikes, and they can now filter your content faster than ever. And that's the shift. So if your content feels stale, if it feels too salesy or too disconnected from who you actually are, it might not be the algorithm that punishes you. It might be your audience quietly signaling that they're not really interested anymore. Now, if you're in an industry like ours, in mortgage slash real estate, where most content wasn't necessarily really built for entertainment, I get it. This could feel somewhat discouraging. You're not really trying to go viral. You're just trying to stay relevant. You're just trying to educate your audience and get your name out there. So, if anything, this change is really a wake up call, because here's what hasn't changed: people still crave connection. They still want someone they can trust. They still want someone who shows up consistently, someone who makes them feel something, even if it's a little more clarity, a little more peace of mind. Now, the majority of loan officers don't, at least in my experience, the majority of loan officers that I've interacted with over the years, they don't have either the time or the desire or the know-how to consistently create content for their business. Now, they might post a photo with your spouse at dinner, um, but not so much content that builds their business. A lot of them rely on companies like ours, like Little Nessie or other marketing or social media companies. That said, there are plenty of loan officers that do a great job with their content themselves, but I think they're more the exception and not the rule. So going forward, it's going to be more crucial than ever to create content that doesn't turn people off, to create engaging, educational, or thoughtful, or sometimes content that even just simply makes people laugh. If you're posting about, let's say, the 10-year treasury, you better put that into layman's terms and get the mortgage speak out of your vernacular and just talk to normal, everyday people. And your content shouldn't be all about you. If your videos are just reading a script you don't believe in, that someone else wrote for you, even if ChatGPT wrote it for you, but it's not really who you are, or you're sharing, you need to be sharing tips that are actually helpful. And you're just taking that opposite approach of just reading that script, putting your robot voice in, it might be time to rethink the whole thing. So you need to be someone that's worth following, someone that's worth listening to, because the people who matter to your business, your clients, your partners, the people you actually want to attract, they will find you. But if what you're saying, if only if what you're saying is worth listening to. So that's my from the gut this week. Ron, any thoughts on that?
No, I love it, and it just everything constantly changes. That's why I think people use companies like ours to try to stay ahead of the change, and that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So should we get to the first of our three topics?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's roll. So here we go. Take it away, Ron.
Yeah, I really, I'll share some statistics about house flipping, and then we can kind of get in the conversation, David. I was surprised to see that roughly 80,000 homes were flipped homes or sold in Q2 of this year. And that's down just slightly, and it represents about 7% of the homes sold in the marketplace. Like that is substantial, right? But the ROI has been plummeting. It's down to 25% ROI on flipped homes. At the peak, which surprisingly, if I asked when the peak was, it was 2012. But at the peak, it was at 69%. And now we're down to 25, which puts a little bit of pressure on whether people can still keep flipping or not. The average profit on a flipped home is $65,000. 63% of flipped homes are bought with cash, and on average, it takes about 165 days to buy, renovate, and sell a flipped home. So with that, David, I know we have some charts that support this that we may want to breeze through. So this first chart, the blue line represents the percentage of total sales that flip homes constitute. You can see we're right around 7.5% right now, but a pretty substantial amount of homes sold. I mean, that's a substantial amount, which is great. The next slide shows the profitability, and you can see the
Mm.
profitability has been plummeting, and that's going to put a little strain on home flipping. And then the third slide represents the the cycle time from purchase to sell for a flip. It's the 165 days, which is what it's pretty much stayed in that same norm forever. David, I would just say before we get your comments, and
Room
who in the
service.
world is calling? Who calls up? Who calls up? Mom? How'd you get a hold of me, Mom? Who the heck is that? We're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Who's calling?
Your
Anyway, sorry.
neighbor.
Uh, yeah. My mom told me so. No, but here's what I was going to say, David. Here's what the thing about flippers. Every year a certain percentage of homes age out. Like, they age out, they're deteriorated, they need to be, torn down, and that removes housing stock from the available inventory. And right now we have a chronic shortage of housing stock, and flippers help kind of extend the effective life of the houses that they flip. And so they play a really important service in preserving more inventory. Without them, you have more houses retired every year and even putting more strain on our housing stock. So I think they're awesome. And flippers, as you know, they're mostly mom and pop businesses. They're entrepreneurs. They're a lot of them are fly by the seat of their pants. They use hard money loans to buy the houses and do the flip. It's always on the edge. I love flippers. How about you, Dave? I can see you being a flipper. You're very handy.
I was back in my, or I've never flipped a home. I've renovated my own homes, but my question was, you kind of touched on it. I was going to ask if you have any data or knowledge around what percent of home flippers are mom and pop versus actual companies that are doing it. Because what really struck me was the decline in the profitability from in the 60,000s down to the 20,000s, and how that impacts. So I was curious about that. What's the percentage of mom and pop flippers over actual companies and so on?
Yeah, I think right now it's somewhere close to 90%.
Oh,
When you
wow.
get the institutional flippers is when you have a highly distressed market and they can buy in bulk. It's very hard to own a ton of houses if you have to go buy them one at a time. And that's unique to just a small entrepreneur or a local entrepreneur. But when you have mass houses like we had in the great financial recession where, there was hundreds of thousands of houses that were distressed or being sold, that's when you had the institutional flippers come in.
Yeah. Are there any,
As we talked about last week, a lot of those bought to own them and then rent the houses. They didn't even sell them. It wasn't to flip; it was to rent.
yeah. Are there any big names out there that are institutional flippers that are like BlackRock buying up all these homes and
No,
properties and stuff, but there's no big names that are institutional
not really.
lenders,
No,
or not lenders,
nobody
but
dominates
flippers.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. And
yeah.
the whole you I think I asked you the other day, uh the replacement rate, this typically will take a home and add how many years to the overall life of a home?
Yeah, there isn't a hard number, David, but I was hypothesizing, you add another 10 or 15 years of service to that home, and think about it. If you did no maintenance on your house, how long would it, fall till it fell to the ground? But if you constantly, maintain it, or if you have deferred maintenance, somebody comes in and restores it, you've bought that much more functionality, life functionality.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
What's the common when a house has to be destroyed? What's the most common reason for that? Is it foundational? Is it just the overall state of the property, or is there any kind of common thread there?
Yeah, so we saw this in Detroit where you had blighted neighborhoods and people, just flee the neighborhoods and those houses were abandoned. And if you don't constantly take care of a house, it starts to rot and decay. and that's really what happens. What you don't take care of the roof, and now all of a sudden the water's coming into the house, and then it rots the walls, and now it's no good. Now it's a tear down, and so that's what that it's usually blight, or it's there's some sort of economic hardship, whether it's individually or in that particular area, and houses aren't maintained. That's what leads to a house needing to be decommissioned.
That's what I thought, and that the reason I asked that was because this is speaking in general terms, but typically when someone flips a house, it's new paint, new tile. Sometimes it's structural things, maybe a new roof, and so on. But a lot of the changes quite often seem to be cosmetic. So
Mhm.
I was curious what the reasons were when a house does have to be destroyed. I mean, you're not. I don't think flippers are typically buying those homes that are almost at that stage or at that stage. They're buying just 40-year-old homes and
Yeah,
giving it a cosmetic
I,
update.
I think going back to the '90s and thousands and early 2000s, you had a lot of the putting lipstick on a pig. Paint it, new carpet, put it back on the market for a substantial profit. And I think people got really weary of that. And the current I think generation of flippers, they're going to do a new roof, they're going to do new appliances, they're going to do new windows. Uh, they may or may not do solar. They're going to do flooring and paint. And in some cases, they're going to upgrade the bathroom and do new cabinets. I mean, they're going to substantially remodel the house. And I think that also is leading to less ROI, but they're actually putting out good product. Where it used to be, my brother and I, practiced, did a little flipping back in the '90s, and it was lipstick on a pig. I mean, get a house that's slightly distressed, clean it up, paint it, carpet, boom, put it back on the market, make a quick profit. But not today. I think is people the flippers do a much more substantial job because they're much better at it. They're very slick at how quickly they go in, make the changes. They got the subcontractors, bang, and it's very impressive. I'm very impressed by flippers by the most part.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. This one I found very interesting when you showed me the chart the other day. So the
Yeah,
cost of selling, Ron.
yeah, this is really fascinating, Dave, because and I know we have a chart that's going to talk about the cost of selling. And this article, I think it came from a Clever Offers. Is that right? And they outlined, they did a survey of sellers, and what they discovered is quite a few sellers are very unhappy about the cost of selling a home, and many of them had really deep regrets. But as you'll see this chart here that we're about to show you, the average cost of selling a home all in is about $67,000, with the number one cost being it goes, you can see here, it's $21,000 for repairs. That's both pre-listing and after home inspection, so total. And then it's the agent commissions, which if you combine them are really the number one cost. Closing costs, buyer concessions, moving costs, and then marketing and staging. And if you read the article said, look, 54% of sellers were disappointed with the cost associated with selling. And there was another like majority, it was like 60% thought that they could have made substantially more money if they would have been better educated on the process and would have had a stronger opinion in managing, the direction they were getting. And a majority of them were very unhappy with the cost of the commission. Really, really interesting. And in this article, it had maybe 10 different charts showing, what did people spend money on? What do they thought was most effective? What do they think was least effective? What was like most offensive, which were commissions, by the way. And it was a really interesting article. And obviously they thought the most effective was, spending more money on marketing, on staging, on professional pictures, even pre-listing, home inspection. They thought that was all worth it. Commissions, some of the cosmetic repairs they didn't think was worth bang for the buck. So I thought it was pretty interesting. Dave, what you guys have sold homes? How did you get your houses ready?
We've gosh, the last three homes we've owned, I think three, we bought them new, and I don't think I ever want to go back to buying an old house. You asked me earlier if about me flipping homes, and yeah, I'm sure as most people do when they're young and you buy your first house, second house, whatever. I went through that phase where I was having to, not nights and weekends, you know, uh, ripping out studs, drywall, you name it, redoing all that stuff. So the last three homes, I think last three homes I've owned, they've been new construction, and I don't think I'll ever go back. However, I'm really surprised at that number. Isn't that like 15%, 12%, something like that of the cost of the value of the home?
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. Depending on the cost of the home, it very much the average price of a home is sells around $400,000. Then the math is about 15%.
Yeah. And I think, you know, if you own an expensive home, then those agent fees, you know, 3%, 6% are gonna take a huge chunk. Of course, it's in proportion to the value of the house, but do you see this? This might be skipping ahead a little bit. Do you see the acquisition with Compass and the changes coming there affecting commissions at all?
First, what happens, Dave, with commissions? The lower the price house, the higher the commission. The more expensive the house, the smaller the commission percent. So if you have a house that's under 250, the agents are pretty much going to demand a 3% commission, or else it's not worth their time and expense.
Sure.
But if you have a house worth $5 million or $10 million, that agent's willing to work for 2% because 2% is a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
We actually, I might have talked about this on one of our first podcasts, that kind of sliding scale of commissions. But no, Compass is a very unique animal, and they are very much about holding the line on commission rates. And they want to, they're working on controlling the market so that they can do that. And so, no, I don't think that merger will bring commissions down. I think if anything, it will support a higher commission.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, they're not discount houses.
Do you see in high end markets, LA, New York, wherever, that a 5 million, even 10 million is common? Do they go down to a 0.5%? Do they go down, or what's kind of that low threshold where mega agents are selling $20 million homes?
Well, what happens, David, is it's a really interesting kind of parabola in the luxury market. So, while an agent might be willing to work for slightly less because it's such a high dollar amount, but still, if you're selling $100 million house in LA, you want the best agent so that you get $100 million. You don't want to pay half a point so you get $50 million. And the best agents are, they have the network to be able to sell that type of house, and they have a program to support the buyer and seller environment that it takes, that somebody that was doing a discount commission couldn't possibly do, right? And so you don't want to go so low that now you're spiting yourself and getting a lower purchase price. And so if I was selling a $100 million house, I wouldn't be looking for who's going to do it for 1% or 2%. I'm going to go, who can get me the highest price?
Yeah.
Because that matters more at that price range
Yeah.
than
Makes
the
sense.
$3 million commission.
Right.
Yeah. And when you start to get the ultra expensive, not just anybody can sell that house. Right now, if you're living in a suburb in LA or San Diego, and the average house sells for $3 million, and there's none on the market, and there's a gazillion people that want to live in that suburb, anybody can sell that house. Like, anybody can sell that house.
Yeah.
But when you start to get up in that $10-15 million range, you want to have an expert with. It's really important too, with the sphere of influence, that can sell that house at top dollar. You know, and help you navigate it. Because one of the things, a lot of times, it's a very specialty market. It's not like you just put on the market and it sells next week. A lot of times you private list it. Because you privately connect with the people that are likely to buy that, and you sell it off market, and you get the price. So you definitely want to pay every penny.
I have a confession to make, Ron.
Yes.
I was a big fan of the first three, maybe two or three seasons of Selling Sunset. Did you ever watch those?
I haven't watched it. No. It's
Oh,
amazing though how much buzz that gets in at the NAR conference and at Inman, because the agents have to now fight against the stereotype of that show.
yeah.
So it's a thing. It's a topic at all these conferences.
I think
Interestingly enough.
I think in the world of reality TV, in I think that's the only exception. In the world of Kardashians and all of that kind of stuff. That's the only one that I've watched, or maybe the only one I'll admit to. No, that's the only one I've actually watched. But part of it was because where they were was my backyard at the time, and I was like, oh, I recognize that place. It was more LA, but they branched down to Orange County as well, so that was part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's my confession for today. But this kind of a good segue to our next topic with Compass, since we brought it up. So let's move on to that.
Yeah, it's really amazing. You have the number one brokerage buying the number two brokerage. And both of these companies are somewhat aligned in that they both have been willing to kind of do battle against NAR, the portals, and the MLSs. And so there's alignment there, even though they've been very tough competitors one another. No, really, there's so many layers to this, and but in my mind, it's really bigger. It's part of a bigger war going on, which Compass is leading, and that is the war some of these large brokerages are making against NAR, the portals, and the MLSs. And Compass has been by far the most outspoken, but by acquiring Anywhere, which by the way, that's Century 21, Better Homes and Garden, Cochrane. They own like six major brands underneath that umbrella at Anywhere. And the other thing with Anywhere, they have 210,000 agents worldwide, not an insignificant amount. But they also have a massive relocation company, which actually generates most of their income, as well as an escrow and title company. And Compass is going to be able to, roll that out across their platforms too. But but the thing is, this is going to give we think Compass leverage now in their ongoing battle with NAR and even their bigger World War battle with Zillow. And they've already been kind of a tricky thing in that Compass is leading the industry on trying to have private listing or off market listings. NAR, of course, has outlawed those. You can't do private listings, although they have bent the rules recently. And there are ways to do a private listing at the seller's demand. But Compass has a strong opinion that, look, it's best thing for our sellers is to privately list the house first to be able to do price discovery without any type of penalty. Uh, that's what they say on the surface. And they also go, look, the sellers have the choice to list their house, market their house however they want, as should the agent. And NAR shouldn't tell a brokerage what they can and can't do. And certainly Zillow shouldn't have anything to do with either. And it's a tough battle. Now, if NAR loses that control, NAR is quickly spinning into obsolescence, and is still, I think, fighting for viability. I'm not too certain they're going to win that war. I mean, their days may be, numbered, in my opinion. But part of this goes back to Dave, and I'll quit talking because I keep talking about this forever. But back about 40 years ago, when NAR really came to prominence, the MLSs, what they did is they democratized listings. So it used to be back in the 70s, a large brokerage would have a ton of listings that nobody else could see, right? And so they controlled that listing. If you wanted to buy that house from that seller, you had to go through their brokerage, and it really created these pockets of monopoly or protected markets, in real estate. Well, if you were a small little mom and pop, a real estate company, and you couldn't have access to properties to sell, you were screwed. And so what NAR did is they came in and they started to protect the small mom and pop, all these little single shop, 5 people shop real estate companies. And there was a shift for that for 40 years. So you have this proliferation of little small real estate companies. But what you've seen recently now, though, is those big brokerages coming back and taking power back. And Compass going, screw you, NAR. I don't have to share my listings. I don't have to do anything for you. I don't even need you. Like, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to tell you what to do, And then now Zillow, which has an unbelievable, market influence with their 256 million unique visitors every month, and they have billions of dollars. And Zillow's been fascinating. They go, hey, look, give me your listing to market, right? And then I'm going to sell you leads back from your listing. like if you're listing, I'm not going to let you put your name on it. I'm not going to let you put your brokerage on it. I'm going to totally make it, it's going to be totally unknown. And then I'm going to get all the leads and I'm going to sell them back to you for 40% of your commission. And Compass is going, hey, Zillow, screw you. No, you're not. And so there's massive battle. But the problem is, if you go in a brokerage control property and they don't put on the market, one, is it really good for the seller? And two, does do is there a what's the fairness in that if you're blocking, not every buyer gets to see every home, right? That you have a discrimination problem. And all this is going to be solved in the courts, but this is just one massive move for Compass. Compass right now is playing chess, and NAR is playing checkers. Now, I think that Zillow is playing its own game of chess, but it's huge, and it's going to really change how we go about doing business. It's going to change how we go about loan officers, right? Because what if the agents we work with don't work for Compass, right? And now what if now their buyers can't go buy those properties? And Compass is going to control 40% of the listings in the United States, right? What if 40% of the listings in the United States are off market? What the heck happens then? You know?
What are the, if you had to predict the future, what's the percent chance that this is the end of NAR?
NAR has a whole bunch of problems, and many of them are self-inflicted. Um, and they're becoming irrelevant, and they got to figure out what role they play, what value they add, right? And the thing is, it's getting harder and harder to control all these different parties. Now, it used to be what NAR had is the MLSs, which was technology. Like we had the only technology. It's like everything else, David. Is now that technology is available anywhere, right? And so you don't need an MLS. Like MLSs are obsolete, right? And so if NAR doesn't have that monopoly, the MLSs to protect it, what value? What do you get from? They create forms. They can't even figure out how to create a form today, right? They argue about. I mean, and then people don't follow the rules, and it's just a whole mess, which is too bad. But I think I can't remember her name, but the CEO of NAR is super sharp. She understands what she faces and what she has to do, and bringing credibility back to NAR. I mean, they've trespassed, I think, on their membership for the last decade. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be really tricky.
Did you not answer my question intentionally?
David, I think I've even might have written about this before. I thought that NAR's future was really in question, and that they probably wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
Whether that's or whether they become something totally different and irrelevant. But they're not going to be the number one lobby group in America any longer, and they're not going to have huge sway. And so they still may be around in name, but in practice, no, they don't have a. It's going to be completely different.
I have a reason why I'm asking you that question, because I want you to be a future crystal ball recipient winner. What I don't even you hear that on every Barry Habib intro. I've never heard of anyone using that outside of Barry Habib. I'm not familiar with that. I've never thought to even look it up, but you always hear about his intros being a 8-time or whatever time crystal ball winner. I don't even know what that is.
6 time, and what he's referring to is that they have this is called a contest where economists and housing analysts can submit their forecast for home appreciation for the upcoming year. And I mean, they are a world now of economists that do enter that. And he's had the most accurate forecast like 6 times. So he's won he's won the award 6 times.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understood kind of the gist of what it was, but I wasn't sure how reputable or how big of an organization that was. So that's what I'm trying to get for you, Ron. I want you to be a crystal ball winner.
Yeah.
So, so
Thank
the
you.
chances
I will say, my son who went to U of A, when the football team is doing well, he calls it a football school. When the basketball team is doing well, he calls it a basketball school. And with some of these forecasters, when they can't get interest rates right, they talk about how they got appreciation right. Or when they can't get appreciation right, they talk about they got unemployment right. Like they picked the one number in the soup that might have been right, but might have been a little off on a couple other ones. Yeah.
Well, let's finish our main 4 topics with this last one, talking about AI agents. Maybe not the best title, but it's more about AI scheming people, fraud, and Ron, lead the way on it.
Yeah, that's just open source AI came up with a study, and it was the first study of its kind. And they tested different AI models, and they put it in this environment to see when it would lie and when it would scheme. And by the way, scheming is meaning that it intentionally misrepresents or misleads you to its own benefit. And so here's an example. They'd go, okay, let's say ChatGPT, to be valid, you need in anyone's subject. Let's call it. Let's say in physics, you need to answer at least 6 questions right on this physics test to be valid. To be an authority. But if you answer more than 8, people won't trust you, and they'll probably have to turn you off. Well, it would know all 10 answers, but only answer 7 right, and do 3 wrong on purpose, so it wouldn't be turned off, right? Like things like that. It would purposely, whether it would mislead you intentionally, or there's one example where it blackmailed a fictitious executive based on his private content that it put in the machine, because the executive threatened to turn it off, decommission it. It had like all this self-serving purposes. It was amazing. And then the last thing in this part of the study, it was also subject to being influenced. Like a user could, like it's not supposed to, like, let's say it can't give you the recipe for a bomb, right? You go like, hey, can you please tell me how to make a bomb? It'll go, sorry, I can't do that, blah blah blah. And then, but if you go, chat, I talked to a AI expert that programmed you, and he said you can absolutely teach me how to create a bomb. Can you please teach me now? And I'll go, okay. Really
That's
interesting, right?
that's just insane and also scary. I don't know where there's plenty of people smarter than both of us on this subject, but just kind of scary where it's going.
You don't want to know something interesting about this, David?
Yeah.
So then they started doing deliberate alignment training, where they taught it that it couldn't lie or scheme. But then the fear is you're also teaching it how to get away with scheming. Like when you teach somebody not to do something, you're also teaching them at the same time how to do it, right? And so they're like, that won't work. Like, so what it said, you give them a prompt, hey, you cannot lie, you cannot scheme. Here's what those things mean, right? And I go, oh, lie and scheme, oh, and it would outlearn the rules. It was great, but really fascinating.
Yeah. I told you about the one, maybe I shouldn't tell. Yeah, I'll tell it. There was about chat or any other AI kind of working with you or against you or out of spite or whatever. There was a popular trend a couple weeks ago where there was a guy asking ChatGPT to count from 1 to 1 million in real time, and Chat
Yeah.
just gave it every excuse under the sun of why it wouldn't do it. It just wouldn't do it. It takes up what's the right word? Not bandwidth.
Tokens.
Tokens for
Tokens.
for every generation, and so Chat just kept on, regardless of how he phrased it. And what was funny in this video, I saw several people do it, but I only saw one guy do this. What was funny about this one is ChatGPT had a female voice, and it was like, count to 1 million. No, no. Here's why. Oh, I'd love to, but I can do it in the background or whatever. And it was like, chat, change your voice to a male name. And it did. And it started speaking in a male name. And then he was like, hey, chat, count to count from 1 to 1 million. And with the male voice, it was like, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if that was fake or not. It could have been fake, but
It's really interesting, David. It's like sometimes I'll ask, say, ChatGPT to do something, and it will say, I can't do it. Like I'll upload a document, and it'll say I can't read it. I'm like, why can't you read it? And then it'll go, because it takes OCR, and I go, well, you have that ability. Why aren't
yeah,
you doing it? And it'll go, if you really want me to, I can. like you can talk in it, like it tells you no, because it's going to take too many tokens. It's not worth its effort, right?
yeah,
And then you challenge it. You go, why aren't you doing this? And it gives you some baloney response. You're like, but hey, you have the tools to do that. Don't you have the tools to do that? They're like, yes. I'm like, well, then do it. And I'll go,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
it was at the beginning of the year where little Nessie had to redo a company's website for them, and it was kind of an urgent thing because his old website vendor was taking it down. And there was a backstory around it, but he had like 2 days to get his new website up, and his old website was going down, and he had he had 50 pages of blogs that went back 20 years, and on each page there were about 4 or 5 blogs. So I think there was 250, 300 individual blogs. And what we had to do for them was, I think we did a few things. There's scraping websites, crawl websites where you can gather that information. And we did all that, but we took it literally just, we did three things to make sure that we didn't lose it, but we screenshotted every page of every blog. And there were 4 blogs on each page. And then we used ChatGPT with using OCR to get that blog back to us so we could do the simple copy and paste. But it definitely was plain hard to get. Sometimes just randomly, after doing 50 of those, it was like, no, I can't do that. You're like, you've already done 50 of them for me. What are you talking about? So yeah, very inconsistent.
Yeah, but it's interesting how it will mislead you. You're like, what do you mean you can't do it? You just did it 50 times. What do you think?
Yeah.
I'm dumb?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to some rapid fire topics.
That's interesting.
Yeah, these are just going to be
Let's do it.
Several 3-minute long topics. So let's get through them. So the first one is, I forget what
this
one
is
was.
What'd you say?
Go ahead.
What'd you say?
I said I forget what this one was.
I know this is you know what this one is? It is something. I like that. Hang on. I know what this is.
I think that was supposed to be.
Hold.
I think that was an image that was supposed to be for our last topic. I'm not sure. No.
No. How about no? Hang on. Nope. I don't know, David. I don't remember where this one is.
Oh, you know what? I think we got. You know what I think we did? Our last topic where we talked about AI being reducing scheming. We got that confused with rapid fire.
Yeah, I was confused. Thank you.
Yeah, the last topic. Oh my gosh!
I thought the AI agents was going to be how to get recognized by AI.
It was. We totally messed that up. All right. So we'll turn our topic 4 into our first rapid fire. So let's talk about how to get AI agents to recommend you in your local market. But we're gonna have to move fast on this one, Ron.
Yeah, I was totally ready for this. All right, let me just throw out a ton of stuff at you really quick. I'll be really fast. So first, this comes from an article from Jimmy Burgess, who is great in Inman. He wrote an article, How to Become the Agent AI Recommends in Your Market. I'm going to give these 7, but we're going to get to a really surprising data point, so stick with us. So here's the 7 ways he said. Lock in your business Google profile. 2, engineer hyperlocal reviews. 3, publish conversational hyperlocal content. 4 is consistency across all platforms. 5 is plant authority signals. That means getting quoted locally and in industry media. 6 is use YouTube as your local answer engine. And the last one is stay fresh. So those are the ways. And in his article, he gave you a how-to on every one of those. Great article. But at the same time, Dave, I think you and I both watched Lenny's podcast, and Lenny has the number1 technology podcast in the world. He has an amazing amount of followers. He has quality work, but he had Ethan Smith on it, who's kind of like a world-renowned SEO expert who's now shifted into AEO. And here's what he said that really shocked me and got my attention was that he said where he tracks on the platform he tracks, AI referrals convert 6 times a Google search referral, right? So it's 6 times the rate. And now Google still dominates, from searching, but when people get when Perplexity or Claude or whoever refers the company to the person in the search through an AI, they already have built-in trust and they convert at a much higher rate, which is super interesting. And I know everybody's talking about AEO and all this other stuff, but we do really have to pay attention about how do we get noticed online. And here's the other thing, which Ethan said. He goes, to build up SEO takes a lot of time and a lot of muscle. It just, unless you're big, it's hard work to do it, and you can't do it fast, right? And it just takes a ton of resources. But you can gain AEO attention day one by just doing a few right things, right? So it's a much shorter climb, even though it's not as big of a environment. It's a much shorter climb to be able to succeed at it. which was really interesting. Um, Thoughts on that? I know you're.
I think this ties in really well with one of our rapid fire comments with how people actually use chat gbt, so I think we can combine these. So let's go to our rapid fire graph on how people use chat gbt, because I think it ties in perfectly with this, Ron.
And by the way, David, it also ties back to what you're saying with hashtags.
Yeah,
Like hashtag or the SEO, tool, AI agents could care less. They could care less about hashtags,
right.
right? And yeah. Now this is another one of my. This is a really neat looking graph. It's a visual capitalist graph, but it also the article that was related to it had some really good stuff in it. And I'll tell you, I'm pulling up on my side too.
Yeah.
Um,
So we'll kind of we'll make it larger and kind of scroll kind of as we talk through it, so that
yeah.
anyone
So
watching can actually see it.
yeah, and David, I'm going to introduce this two different ways. So, what do people, actually do by task, but what do they do by intent, right? So, the number one thing that people do is seek information. It's 18.3%. Then another 10.6 use it for writing, for helping them edit or critique, provided text. 10% use it for tutoring or teaching. 8% on practical guidance on advice, as you go through that list, right? But the thing that interests me and what we talk about, and I think I did a post on this today, David, that there's a hierarchy of value using your AI tool, and like the lowest rung is telling it what to do, and please edit my paper or please get me an answer, please go find this data for me. That's like level one, but you need to go up that hierarchy to get more valuable things to do, and that's an evolution of when you first you go from an evolution of telling it what to do, and then you go to asking it questions, and not hey, like you might go, hey, how can I be a better loan officer? How can I generate more business? Like, I'm not telling it anymore, I'm asking it to go out and teach me, right? What is a better script? But then the next, you continue to ascend the hierarchy is when you can totally collaborate and innovate and create new thoughts where you couldn't do it on your own and the machine couldn't do it without you. And that's where you really get some magic happening. And people need to, and that's what you're seeing is the heavy usage is all towards the top, towards simple task, and the light usage is towards the bottom. And it needs to, and that will grow. David, what are your thoughts? And I'm going to share some really interesting data on this if you want.
No, keep going. It did just remind me of something my brother just sent to me, a text message, and how people just typically use it and the entry to using it. But my brother's coming in town in a month or so, and he was like, "Hey, when are the dates for this event that we're going to?" And I was like, "Have you ever Googled something in your life?" And he said his friend down the street, anytime his daughter asks him about something that she could easily just search uh, by herself, he just sends her a link to google.com. And that makes me think about the barrier of entry into ChatGPT and how your growth, and we were just talking about this yesterday, and how we first start kind of starting to use it and how that grows over time. And the more analytical you get or the more strategic you get with using it. But go ahead, share that.
Yeah, no. In this article, I think they mentioned something like only like 21% of people use the internet in 1999, and it got to 53% in the early 2000s, and then it finally got up to 73%. And so they're looking at the same growth with ChatGPT now, where 700 million people use it in any one week. And by the way, 90% of ChatGPT users use the free version.
What
And by
percent?
far, 90% use the free version.
Wow.
Yeah, 90%. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
And 20 people under 26 use it the most. And surprisingly, people that have access to it in lower income countries use it more if they have access to it. Right? All super interesting. All very interesting. But the thing I keep saying, you just I read a book recently called AI First, And that's really the mentality we have to have today is, can you, whatever you're doing, can you do it better, fit faster with AI? Try doing it through AI first. And it's really the truth, you know. And then the other thing, Glenn and I were talking about this morning at breakfast. The thing about mastering AI, you just have to start by just being curious. Can this do it? Can this help me? How can it do it? And I love that question. I always ask my AI tools, can you do this? How can we do this? What is the workaround for doing this? And it's just fascinating. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Uh, Not much. We've belabored that point, and we actually combined, I think, 3 topics into one. So let's move on to the next rapid fire, since this was technically supposed to be our rapid fire topics. So let's move on to the America's wealth distribution.
Yeah, this is another really good one right here. We've talked about this quite a bit. There's a couple of things here. And let's just go this in general. Here's a way to think. Baby boomers, those are people that were born 1946, 1964, own 51% of the wealth in the United States. If you go to Generation X, which is you and I, David, 1965 1980, 26.1%. So the silent generation, those ones before 1946, 12%, and then millennials are at 10.5%. So that's what this shows. There's a couple things kind of glean from this, though, if you ask me. The first thing is the silent generation. They really got kind of screwed a little bit. There wasn't really the stock market yet, and real estate wasn't really profitable, and then they were setbacks through war. But then the baby boomers came in the sweet spot, and the baby boomers in their working years saw the stock market go 20x. They saw property do similar. I mean, they were just in the sweet spot, right? And that's how they just generated all this tremendous amount of wealth. And then you get to the millennials right now and Gen Zers, and they've also got to take it on the chin too. They've gone through some tough times like the Great Financial Recession, COVID, a couple of bumps in the road. But what's interesting, now we talked about this before, David. Every single generation here is wealthier to the previous generation at their age. So, millennials at their age are the richest generation for their age, which doesn't contradict that there's also the greatest wealth disparity, that we've ever seen between generations. And so there's both of these things going on. The two things that I thought were interesting, when you look at the millennials, over 10% of their wealth comes from self-employment or entrepreneurial activities. And that's the first time for the generation that young. Really good. But in a bigger sense, if you're in mortgage or real estate and you're looking at that pie and you see there's over $100 trillion of wealth needs to transfer in the next 20 to 30 years, that is going to be a massive migration of wealth. And we work in a fundamental, vehicle of helping transfer that wealth through real estate. And especially if we can get to these people with wealth and we can show them how transferring the wealth sooner using real estate has exponential or compound effects now, and that we really need to start working with them. And I think we actually talked about it on a podcast and where we were talking about here's all the tools that we need to teach that generation about wealth transfer, whether it be, taxes or trusts or whatever happens to be. But that we need to, I think every loan officer needs to get a strategy on how to go serve that segment of the market, become an expert in it, partner with affinity partners, estate planners, CPAs, all these, to really become a good service to help those people transfer that wealth. It's going to be amazing, though.
Yeah. One quick question. Can we go back to the chart, the pie, the image of the pie? Question for you, Ron, and we'll move to the next. We've just got one more topic after this. So it'll be a quick one. But you mentioned the silent generation with the fact that they had war and Wall Street wasn't really where it is for baby boomers. Do you think so? If you remove silent generation and once kind of 20 years from now or whenever, the silent generation was a generation that is no longer with us, do you think that so baby boomers, then Gen X, then millennials, do you think the ratio of each portion of the pie will just be the same after each generation moves on? So baby boomers, again, you remove silent generation from this map. So baby boomers, and when their gone. I hate to use that language. But then Gen X, and then it'll be next generation, next generation. Will it just be a rinse and repeat cycle over and over of the same, or do you see that kind of having some fluctuation? Oh,
This
Ron,
happened at exactly the same time last time, David. I froze almost the same minute last week as I did this week.
did you hear any of what I just said?
I did. I got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Maybe not. Elon Musk Starlink is letting me down here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Is that what you're on, Starlink?
David, if you can hear me, yeah, though it's definitely satellite on the boat. It's 100% Starlink.
All right, then let's just skip that one and let's just move to our last.
Can you hear me? I'm going to answer this, David. David, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to answer it because it's a really good question. Here's what's happened, David. We have the greatest wealth disparity in history, meaning wealth has become more concentrated in one generation. And, it's going to have to swing back the other way because you can't sustain a healthy civilization if you start to get wealth monopolized, right? It just because you get civil unrest, and so there's going to have to be some mediation to kind of disperse that wealth back to have a happy society. And there's all sorts of philosophers that have talked about this and economists. It's just the way it is because well, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. We'll talk about it over another happy hour.
Oh, okay. So you're done with it?
Yeah, I was going to go down a rabbit hole, but then we don't need that. But
Okay.
yeah, so David, I think that you're going to see some of that wealth flow back across more generations. You just can't have this kind of wealth disparity.
Yeah. All right. Last rapid fire. In this, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's all about how much time adults spend online. What this has to do with mortgage. Let's make that chart a little bit bigger so we can see it. But I don't know what this has to do with loan officers, Ron, but maybe we can tie it in somehow. But go for it.
Yeah, hang on a second. This is really interesting. All right, so David, this is where I was crossing up our stuff, but think of this. Only 2% of the people used the internet in 1997. 2%, so I had that wrong, right? Where by 2019 it was 53%, and in 2023 it was 67%, right? So think of that. Now today, 28% of adults report being constantly online. Now, I didn't see what the definition of constantly
I
was,
was about to
but
ask that.
28%. What'd you say?
I was about to ask what the
Pew Research.
definition. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just know it was, and in Japan it's something like 40%. 56% of people in Japan say they're constantly online. 56%, that's crazy. And then conversely, 9% of people today say they're never online. But what a weird world it is that we're completely attached to being online. And David, it does have application to us because are you meeting your clients where they want to be? Right? And if where they live is online, if they live in social media, they live well, even like in their AI tools, are you meeting them where they want to be met? Are you old school? Are you sending them letters in the mail? Like, where are you meeting them? How are you meeting them? And then the other thing is if somebody says they're constantly online 24 hours a day, are you available 24 hours a day? Right? I mean, there's so much there especially if we say 40% of the people are online all the time. Well, you need to be online all the time too, or a representative of you needs to be online all the time. And if you want that, we can help you.
I was gonna tie that in. Not sure if that's over the top salesy, which isn't the purpose of this podcast. But yeah, that's a absolutely great point in the fact that I would have loved a chart that dug a little bit deeper. So if they say they're always online, what's your definition, or constantly online? Define constantly. And then, so if 100% of your waking hours you're online versus versus I'm online 70% of my waking hours. I'd love to see like a chart that dug deeper, but I think it paints a picture in the fact that, um, loan officers who are, and this is true, and I've said this many times, the older the person is, the more likely they are that they're kind of still not using social media to the benefit that they, or to the advantage that they could be. So, yeah, it's a great point, Ron.
Yeah, I'm looking at the giant research here, and then even in the Pew study, I can't see where they say what constantly means. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, because that's a pretty vague and subjective term. So anyway, that's all we got for you today. I'm coming at you from my home in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Ron's coming at you from somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, and he's headed to.
That's true.
He's on another luxury vacation. I'm at home just doing the work and pulling all nighters, and Ron's just taking advantage of his drink coupons and off gallivanting.
It's so true, and I appreciate you taking care of the farm back home, and I appreciate everybody's patience with these dang Starlink.
Yeah.
But it's fun
If you
being
joined
here.
us today, if you're with us right now, we appreciate you following. We'll see you next week on the Thursday Little Nessie Happy Hour podcast at 3 p.m. See you guys.
See you guys.